Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Trader Talk with our friend Charty Man Dan. How you going, Dan?
Good, Alex. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and the markets have been green since we last spoke a few months ago. I think at the time we were umming and ahhing how Bitcoin looked, and we were a little bit more positive on altcoins because we had a few good altcoins that were up a couple 100%. So we said the chances that the bottom are in for altcoins is a lot higher. But I think, what are you saying the chances are that the bottom is in for Bitcoin and everything now?
Yeah, I mean, my ever since the weekly trend change, I started to shift perspective. And what really did it for me was the reaction to the bad news, or I should say the lack of reaction. So the fact that we held above 5,000 after two in a row, it was Bitfinex and then it was Binance, and we just didn't see any pullback. And that was clear to me that sentiment has shifted.
Yeah, you couldn't have hoped for a better response. And if that had happened in the bear market at teetering on 6,000 and we collapsed 50%, yet here we are. It's just a complete different sentiment and environment. And we've done a lot of talking about the fundamentals that have been happening behind the scenes, the accumulation. And when everyone is out there telling people that now's a pretty good time to buy for the long term, we have to remember that plays out in the real world. There's people out there that are now dollar cost averaging, and there's traders that are more positive, that bottoms in, that are pushing the markets higher just as they pushed the markets lower and everyone hated them on the way down. And now there's some big moves on the way up.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think it's much new retail money. And just from my experience there's different kinds of groups. We have the groups like you and I, and we're very familiar with trading and we're following it day by day. And those are the people that are really active on social media. And then you have the kind of one removed people from that. And I have a lot of friends that are in the one removed space. They're aware of it. They have played it in the past. They took a step back on the bear market and stopped paying attention. And now they see this move and they are trying to get in. And the question is, is that a significant amount of people? Is it a significant amount of money? But I do believe that the most recent move that we've seen, due to the lack of hype and the lack of media coverage and all of that, I don't think it's new retail. I do think it's more likely to be along the lines of institutions and, these custodial accounts that are being set up, whether it's Fidelity or all these different places. I do think that that is what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got people as well that said, "Oh, look, I'm just taking a break while crypto winter," and those people they are coming back now and saying, "Hey, I'm jumping back into the mix." And I agree with your point about the new money. So something that we've been telling people is stick to the big cap coins at the moment, because that's where all the traders are playing, and all those really micro cap coins that aren't really pumping at the moment, I don't think they're going to pump until we've got the next wave of people that go on their journey from Bitcoin to the next thing they like, and then they start speculating, well, what are the good altcoins, and new money actually enters the altcoins directly.
Yeah, that makes sense. All the traders who saw everything 2017, 2018, just patiently waiting for the shift in momentum and then acting on it. I mean, just myself is a perfect example. I had a bunch of capital just sitting and waiting, and the trade position sizes that I'm taking now are a lot bigger than I was taking just, 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, and money doesn't die and go to money heaven, as they say. So there are people that took out profits, but there's also traders that made a lot of money on the way down that now want to pump those profits into altcoins and crypto at the bottom, and that all pushes up that market cap, as well as the pairing to Bitcoin and Ethereum on exchanges. But the pairing to BNB is really interesting. Now that Binance is dominating, there's a lot of coins that are strongly paired to Binance, which is at a new all-time high, and those coins are breaking out more than the others as well.
Yeah, that's a whole new factor in terms of tracking what Binance is doing for that purpose. Although I do want to shift a little bit right now because everything we said is bullish. So let's now look in the opposite scenario. For me, let's talk about what technically would be very bearish for me, and then maybe what would fundamentally be very bearish for you.
Yeah.
So for me, if we were to see a loss of the weekly uptrend, right now, Bitcoin changed the weekly trend with a higher low and higher high. And the last weekly support that we've established is still in the upper 3,000 range as far as a clear pullback level. We haven't clearly pulled back in 2 months. So if we were to clearly pull back and establish a higher low, that'd be great. We need that to happen in the market. It would be healthy. But from that point, if we were to then fail continuation and then drop down to a lower low on the weekly, that would be the most clear shift for me, where I would say, okay, wait a minute, maybe things aren't as bullish as they seem just a month ago or however long it is into the future where that would happen. So that's a scenario, a weekly trend change back to the bears, where I would pause and say, let's look down at that 5,000 to 3,000 area again.
Yeah, and we outlined a bearish scenario video, and two of those things actually happened. As you say, the tether being, very high chance that it's not 100% backed, and then an exchange hacked, and the market didn't react badly. So if something like that was to happen again, if Coinbase was to get hacked, but then the market did react badly, Maybe Craig Wright actually sues someone. Who knows what he's got up his sleeve? But it's all how the market interprets it and then reacts, because at the moment they're not reacting with these knee-jerk sell-offs.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you want to bring up that weekly time frame, Dan? And something I wanted to talk about was, have you ever seen a chart that's flipped so quickly? So the weekly RSI on Bitcoin went from oversold to overbought in a number of months, and that is the quickest I've ever seen. And I know you've got another example here for us.
So yeah, this is Canopy Growth Corporation, CGC. This is the leader in the marijuana sector. It's a Canadian company, and we've seen these hype cycles, and we had a significant bull break, enabled the inability to see continuation, and then there was this red, pretty much a year, but a little bit less than a year, January all the way down to May, where we dropped over 50%, and it was the MJ winter. And it definitely didn't last as long, but as you can see from that bottom, we had a point where we changed the weekly trend, and the most clear weekly trend change was when we topped here, saw brief consolidation, and then things really ramped up, and we had these, huge exponential runs. But the notable thing is, as you said, we didn't quite get to oversold, but the RSI leveled out and then went straight to extremely overbought. And the periods of consolidation on the way up were very brief, just a couple little bull flags into significant consolidation. So that's obviously best case scenario of what the bulls want to see when you go from a cycle of emotion in the market, from despair and, lack of attention, to just a complete 180 turnaround and bullish action.
And this scenario here is another example of where it didn't really pull back to the moving averages on the weekly time frame. If you were waiting to buy in, and we didn't get deep dips, so dollar cost averaging is the best, I think, outcome for a lot of people now. Because if you saw that move from $4 to $7 and thought, I'll buy it when it gets back to 5, it never got there. Then it goes to 17 and it never goes back to 10. It's really, really shallow, pretty low volume, and then we just power higher. And maybe that's what's going to happen in crypto again.
Yeah, that would definitely be as an explosive a scenario as the bulls could hope for.
And what was the new high there, Dan? 56 was it, or?
Yeah, in the 59.25, and now we're working on a tightening pattern that we're going to look to break sometime Q3 to Q4 of 2019, and we'll have some nice volatility once that occurs.
So I guess this is a good example of how reasonably big mature assets in the real world can easily go up tenfold. So that would be like Bitcoin going from its 3,000 bottom to well over 30,000, and that would be perfectly normal for an asset to do that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's zoom in and have a look at maybe Ethereum or something else that you're watching, because I know that ETH BTC pair, a lot of people are watching that for a big breakout, and that would mean Ethereum in US dollar terms is going to have a very strong move.
Yeah, I've been trading Ethereum more than Bitcoin recently, and that sentiment shifted a little bit last night, and that was just because we had very healthy daily consolidation on ETH BTC pairing. And this is why I was interested in Ethereum. I was looking for a daily higher low to form, and ideally I wanted to see a bull flag continuation, but it was a very weak little bounce, and then we dropped to a little lower low there. So that's not what I wanted to see. That's not what I was looking for. So perhaps my focus on the next play that I make is going to shift back to Bitcoin a little bit. But what I need to see happen on this pairing is confirmation of a daily trend change. Yes, we exploded on a 3-day move, and we took out a ton of resistance levels. But to confirm a uptrend, we broke the daily downtrend, but to confirm the uptrend, we need the higher low and higher high follow through. And we don't have that daily confirmation of the trend change yet. So that is something that I'm waiting for. And looking at it from the weekly perspective, we can see it's just a 1 week move, and we have to get that follow through for the momentum to shift.
Yeah, on the weekly, if we clear those moving averages, that could be where we have a lot of upside, and those other levels you've got there as well to make a higher high. But if we go back to the daily, it's not all bearish, is it? It's probably gone from bullish to more neutral, because it has pulled back to the averages still. The volume on the sell-off wasn't too high, so it's not a full-on bearish picture.
Exactly, and that's the kind of scenario where you get follow-through with a little lower high and lower lower. I should say the lack of follow-through stands out, and you're right, we're right at that moving average support. So if we didn't get much more downside than that, that would be a bit of a sigh of relief. And that's things in the market where it's, I wouldn't necessarily call it a contrarian view, but just like we viewed the bearish news in Bitcoin as the lack of reaction being bullish, it's the kind of thing where the lack of reaction to a trend change or I should say trend continuation, the lack of follow through has us shift our focus into the other direction. So let's see if the bulls are able to wake up a bit. And ideally, we want to see a break of 3275, our recent little top.
And Dan, are you able to bring up a coin called Matic? This is a probably good example of a coin that's, run really hard lately, and it's these sort of coins that are on Binance and whatnot.
What pairing would you like?
Let's maybe have a look at the US dollar term, because this has gone up something like 7 or 10 fold, I think. And
this is in Tether.
Yeah, a good example here of where it's run really hard and a lot of people start to chase and get a lot of volume buying. And then, well, I'll let you explain that, but that's a nice reversal candle, then a sell-off.
Oh, yeah, it's a volume climax. It's a big doji where it shows the reason you have that much volume to mark a top is that it's a lot of bull volume to get up there, but then it's a lot of selling and a lot of bears jumping in, and that's why you get that climax of volume. But really looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, probably more significant of a pullback than people were looking for, at least initially. Just like that, we dropped 55%. There's a nice bounce to be had once the bottom was found, but I would expect to trade within this very wide range for at least, a few days for things to continue to tighten up. And that's exactly what Bitcoin and the other major coins are doing. They're trading within their wide range and tightening up. And right now, the most important levels for me would be the low here of 2492 and then the high of this initial bounce of 3401. And whichever one of those levels breaks is going to have some significant short-term implications.
Yeah, I guess the message for me is just be careful, because everyone starts to talk about this coin once it's gone up, 200, 300%. And then unfortunately, a lot of people end up buying it at the 400, 500% profit mark there. And they get met with a 50% correction the next day. So if you like these sort of coins long-term for their fundamentals, that's fine, guys. But you're going to have to stomach some volatility if you buy something that's gone up 500%.
Yeah, it's always, no matter what you're getting into, you want to look at the percentage move that it has made in the short term. And that can tell you whether you should, how protective you should be and whether you should, keep that tight stop loss or patiently wait for at least a little bit more consolidation or average in. There's all different ways to establish your trade game plan, but knowing how much a name has run in the recent past very often comes into factor as what my game plan will be.
Fantastic. I think that's all the charts, unless you had anything else you wanted to show people, Dan.
That's it.
So what else is happening for you, Dan, in the trading world at the moment? Are you spending more time on crypto now these markets are jumping around?
Absolutely. A lot more time, a lot more trades. I've flipped Ethereum 4 times in the last 2 days, just little oversold bounces, just taking 1 to 2% and continuing to lock in those gains. Way more active than I have been. The technical analysis is much better. We don't have these BART patterns. We don't have, we're respecting technical analysis because that's more traders in the game, more volume, more volatility. So there's a lot going on in the broader markets with the Trump-China trade war, and Tesla's got a ton of volatility. Oil's got a ton of volatility. It's a great time to be alive as a trader.
It's a very interesting geopolitical environment as well. But I appreciate you joining us today, Dan, and we'll talk again in future.
All right. Can't wait to be back.
Thanks, guys.